So what I would like to start off with is who is Mike Skinner? And what I'd like to know is what's going on. What are you doing today? What's going on in your life every day? Like your family. What's happening?
So even a sort of a typical day in Mike Skinner today.
Skinner's
Obviously, it's pretty busy with an election coming up. So, but basically, I get up in the morning. I've got 2 young boys that are basically 2 and 5. So spend a bit of time. Yeah, thanks. They're a lot of fun, a lot of energy. So
they'll be. Yeah,
they
in a heartbeat. They'll be. Yeah, I know.
Absolutely. So I spend. We play typically in the morning quite a bit, and then off to school they go. One goes to daycare, and one goes to school. Typically, I try and take at least one of them to school, and then I go off right now to the Innovation Cluster. So I am the president and CEO of the Innovation Cluster. So every day I basically get to help new startup companies grow. And so we, building a company, we focus very much in technology sector businesses. So high tech, high risk, but great careers. These are the kind of businesses that when they're successful, given the right environment, when they become successful, become big employers, and they pay very, very well. And so by working with those companies, we try and make sure they grow, get over some of the hurdles. Sometimes when you're building a company, especially one where there's a lot of risk tied to it, you don't know what you don't know. And so my job is sort of to almost peer into a crystal ball a bit and to see what it is what challenges these individuals are going to have, and really try and coach them into understanding and tying into a whole network of mentors, which are local and across the country that we've put together to help these individuals kind of get through and build those companies. And our goal, very simply, is we want to make them employers. We track our success by how much revenue they generate and how many employees they hire, and what's the long-term success that company's going to have.
You're talking high risk, which there's always risk. You're also talking employment, creating
Absolutely.
Jobs.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's wonderful. I mean, we definitely need more jobs, more employment. Sure. Yeah.
We
I don't know anybody who's going to argue with that.
No, I agree. And again, jobs are important. But when you start tying into some of the high-tech jobs that are, a higher paid salary, that's when you start really attracting companies and organizations to this region. And then, of course, they continue hiring everybody. And, it doesn't matter what you do in a path, in a career or a job. A lot of times the high-tech jobs, I know in in Waterloo, there was a study that said, for every one software developer, it basically employs 5 people. When you take a look at the downstream, all of the other, whether it's restaurants, daycare providers, all the different downstream providers that are required in order to support that position. So every time you create a high-tech job, you're ultimately creating, other jobs at the same time.
So let's talk about what you see in the Peterborough area. Like I know, I've spoke before what I see here. What do you see here? I'm talking generally. We have without interrupting you, sort of thing. We've got hospitals and going, but yeah.
Well, for me, I see a lot of potential. So I think this region has a tremendous amount of potential. It's an amazing place to live. I think all of us live here because it's amazing, right? It's you can walk in an office downtown, you can take a look at the lake, you can go snowmobiling, you can go fishing, you can go boating. Skiing, all these types of things that we have, whether it's cross country or downhill, all these things we have is basically is here. And the best way to determine that is take a look in the summertime of the 401 on a Friday, even a Thursday. The traffic is very much going in this direction.
I know.
And so we get to live here every day. And sometimes I think when we're here, we sometimes forget that, but it's lifestyle. And so when you take an amazing lifestyle and then you combine it with really changes in the last, I would say 20 years when it comes to technology. People don't have to sit in an office. They don't have to work collectively together in a big office building. And so I know when I built our company back in 2001, that was one of the thoughts is, we could have built it in Ottawa. In fact, we started in Ottawa. We could have built it in Toronto. We could have built it anywhere.
Could have built it anywhere.
And the point is absolutely, if we could have built it anywhere, why not in Peterborough? This is my hometown. This is where I was born. And so it was amazing to be able to bring the company back here and to grow it here. And quite frankly, I'm not sure we would have been as successful as we were if we had been somewhere else. The cost of operations is slightly lower. Cost of real estate is lower. I remember about half of my staff used to go home for lunch. It doesn't happen in a major center like Toronto or Ottawa and things like that. And so that lifestyle was very much incorporated into everything that our company did. And I believe that taking that plus all the new talent that's coming out of it. We have under 100,000 people in the city, and yet we have a university and a college.
I know, that's fantastic.
And it's unheard of, right?
Fantastic.
It's
fantastic.
Who
has that? Who has
Absolutely.
that sort of thing?
And we also have 2 really, really strong chair people of both the university and the college, right? The presidents in both cases are very, very strong. They're really giving back to our community. They're really focusing on it, and I think that's something that we sometimes forget. I mean, they're physically located on the outskirts of the city, but I know that both Leo and Maureen are really driving a lot of what's happening in this community, and a lot of things both the university and college are really participating in it. So I think we're pretty lucky to have that, and we're lucky to have around 15,000 students, which basically we've got 15,000 of the next generation of employees right here. All we have to do is figure out how to not bring them to Peterborough, but make them stay, and that's part of what the innovation cluster does. We run a program called Fast Start, which basically is entrepreneurs between 18 and 29, and that program was basically to show entrepreneurship to graduating students. And again, they may not graduate immediately and become entrepreneurs, but they may graduate and work for somebody who just graduated 3 or 4 years prior to them, and really stay in the community, and of course build up that tech sector that we have.
It's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing. Somebody's like yourself, you're creating jobs by teaching these kids. Yeah, that's so. More about you. I want to deal more about Mike Skinner, who Mike Skinner is. Where were you born? Tell us about your parents. Like, what did your parents do?
Sure. So my mom and dad were born in Toronto. They moved here before I was born, so I was born here in Peterborough. Actually,
you sure?
I was absolutely sure. I know exactly where I was born.
Okay.
I remember I grew up on Stewart Street, on the north end of Stewart Street, and then Park Street as well. So I can remember at 5 years old riding down that big hill, and I can remember it like yesterday. So definitely know where I was born for sure.
Okay. I was just never mind. Okay, what'd your parents do though?
So my dad was a furnace mechanic. So basically, his whole life, 40 some odd years, has been installing furnaces, HVACs. And my mom was a stay-at-home mom until I think I was 18. And then my mom always loved history, always reading books, and she went on to be a historical interpreter for Lang Pioneer Village. So she's done that for a number of years. She did, yeah. Now she's sort of, I guess, semi-retired from that, but she still works with Trent Valley Archives, and kind of every so often she'll basically pick a building in Peterborough and write a whole synopsis on it, and it gets published quite often in the Trent Valley Archives Gazette that they send out. So very much about history, and like I said, my dad's now he's retired, but still works with me quite a bit with some of the properties we own, and he's Mr. Mechanical. He's Mr. Fix-It.
If he's working on furnaces.
Mr. Fix-It. I mean, there was a book when I grew up as a kid, which was called Mr. Fix-It, and that was always my dad, because it doesn't matter what it is. He'd bring home something that, quite frankly, he didn't know what it was, but he'd make it work anyways. So he's very, very handy when it comes to that.
That's a gift to be mechanically inclined.
Yeah, and quite frankly, he's taught me a lot. I mean, I'm trying to do the same with my boys as well. And it's important to have a mechanical sense and be able to kind of fix your own stuff if you need to. Doesn't mean you always have to, but you definitely, if you need to, for sure. So I was doing some light switches on the weekend, and I was showing William, of course not letting him go near the light switch, but showing him how you change the light switches, and just showing him a little bit about electricity at 5 years old. So I think it's important. It's something I want to instill in my kids as well, for sure.
He probably understands more about electricity than I do then.
Well, he knows not to touch it, because Dad made that very, very clear, although the breaker was turned off.
I didn't know that.
Safe.
I didn't know that. So
don't ever touch it.
What schools did you go to?
So I went to King Edward, which of course my school is not here anymore, but King Edward was basically where the new YMCA is. I guess not so new now, but newer. And then I went to Kenner. So Kenner. Yeah, Kenner grad, and then I went off to Fleming College. So very much a Peterborough guy the whole way.
My daughter went to Kenner for a while. Were you an athlete? Were you in chess club? Was sports or anything?
So believe it or not, it was more on the computer side. So back then, computer people were very much geeks. This is before everyone realized that Bill Gates makes lots of money, and the tech was cool. But yeah, no, it was very much. I was doing a lot of software programming at 13 years old. I think I got my first PC, and I started doing some programming. That was kind of where my head was at, for sure. I played a bit of sports, but never was a big sports guy. It was very much
never drafted.
Never drafted for sure. Okay. No, and well, I'm just glad there's no videos of me playing sports, because I haven't seen them come out. Thank goodness.
You and I have something in common. I was never drafted either. For some reason, I don't know.